Good afternoon, everyone. The ministers are going to read a joint communique, and then we have time for 3 questions, but then the executive will start after that. And if you could just introduce yourself and your outlet when you ask a question, that would be very much appreciated.
Good morning. Good afternoon, really. I am going to read the statement of the joint meeting of the Lima Group and the International Contact Group on the situation in Venezuela. The foreign ministers of Canada, Chile, and Peru, members of the Lima Group, together with the High Representative of the European Union and the foreign ministers of Portugal and Uruguay, members of the International Contact Group, met today at the United Nations in New York to discuss the situations in Venezuela. The meeting followed both groups' decision to increase contacts with a view to contribute a political, peaceful, and democratic solution to the Venezuelan crisis. They agreed that while the situation needs to be a Venezuelan one, the regional impact of the crisis requires the region and the international community to play a more active role in supporting a prompt return to the democracy in Venezuela. Both confirmed their commitment to a peaceful transition leading to free and fair elections. In this respect, they expressed their support to all efforts underway toward this goal. They reiterated their backing to the democratically elected National Assembly and affirmed the need to fully restore and respect its powers, as well as to release political prisoners. They agreed to continue a close interaction, including on outreach to other relevant international actors. Both groups will also continue to work together in denouncing human rights violations in the country in the context of the Human Rights Council and other multilateral bodies. The Lima Group and the International Contact Group concurred on the gravity of the humanitarian situation, including the migration crisis, and committed to continue providing humanitarian assistance to the Venezuelan population and affected neighboring countries in line with the international agreed principles. They expressed their support to the UN coordinated response and underlined the need to scale up the international support and make sure that the humanitarian actors are able to deliver their assistance without restrictions or political interference. That's the end of the joint statement. Thank you.
Ambassador, Foreign Ministers, and I wanted to see if you can answer in Spanish, if possible, for both of you. After this meeting, what you foresee después de esto? ¿Qué es lo que que esperan que pueda suceder? And this eventually will be able to become part of the efforts by the Norway government. They're trying to start a process where they have a dialogue. Will this eventually end up join? And then the second part is, you talked about the humanitarian crisis in Venezuela. We know the foreign ministers have mentioned the importance of no politicizing humanitarian aid. We will see an opportunity for the Lima Group and the Contact Group to join and then be able to start providing a path to get humanitarian aid to Venezuela.
Gracias por su pregunta. En primer lugar, quiero resaltar que esta reunión ha sido sumamente positiva y que ha mostrado la convergencia y la complementariedad que existe entre el Grupo de Contacto Internacional o el Grupo Internacional de Contacto con el Grupo de Lima. Sobre su pregunta de los pasos siguientes, obviamente que nos hemos puesto de acuerdo en los puntos básicos de coincidencia que tenemos para seguir haciendo la presión internacional al régimen de Maduro y tratar de apoyar siempre a los venezolanos en la búsqueda de una solución pacífica para que puedan recuperar su democracia tan pronto como sea posible. Y eso es lo que hemos mencionado en el comunicado, que tenemos un programa de acción coordinada respecto de actores internacionales que sean relevantes para que puedan ser parte de la solución en la crisis en Venezuela. En segundo lugar, usted ha mencionado bien, o sea, nosotros estamos apuntando aquí sobre la gravedad de la crisis humanitaria en Venezuela, pero además el éxodo masivo que ha causado en la región. Hoy en día, según cifras de Naciones Unidas, tenemos 3.7 millones de venezolanos viviendo en nuestros países. En el caso del Perú, nosotros ya tenemos 800.000 venezolanos que viven en nuestro país y por eso hacemos un llamado a los esfuerzos de Naciones Unidas para que otorgue una ayuda y una asistencia que no sea de carácter politizada, pero no solamente para aliviar la crisis en Venezuela, sino también para los países sudamericanos que hemos recibido esta migración tan importante. O sea que en ese sentido vamos a seguir trabajando conjuntamente y nosotros consideramos que esto debe hacerse de la manera más rápida posible. No sé si mi colega de Chile quiere complementar.
Agregar, quisiera... Who is translating? Who is going to translate?
Maybe.
Okay.
Okay. Just very brief. No? This meeting was very positive, very constructive one, and we, the Lima Group and the International Contact Group, we agree in the convergence of the groups and the complementarity of the efforts that we are making. In that sense, we are going to do all our efforts to to support the Venezuelan people in order to recuperate or recover the democracy as soon as possible. And the second part is that we agree to support the humanitarian assistance from the coordinated efforts that the UN is doing, and it's very important that humanitarian help doesn't politicize. That's it.
Yes, Minor.
Excuse me, we need to. Sorry.
To what my colleague from Peru said, in terms of this is a great day and good news for all of those who search for a peaceful and political solution in the crisis of Venezuela. Very important countries from Europe and Latin America have agreed today on this document, looking into the future and stressing the will of all those who signed this document that the solution for Venezuela under the current crisis is a peaceful one, a political one. And at the same time, this group of countries are sending a powerful message to the international community in order to support this kind of efforts. Thank you.
Excuse me,
Mr.
I have
Minister.
to welcome them on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association. I'm Evelyn Leopold, Independent Media Institute, formerly Reuters, as was the minister from Canada. And I want to know how optimistic you are on the talks of Norway, about the talks going on in Norway. And secondly, for Minister Freeland, the latest tariffs that the U.S. has imposed on Mexico or threatened to, will that in any way impinge on your NAFTA 2 agreement?
Okay, I will, thank you very much, Evelyn. Very nice to see you here. And Roberto actually is also an award-winning writer in his past life, even of novels. So there is a high literary element of this group. I'll answer the second question that you addressed specifically to me. The border issue between the United States and Mexico is a bilateral issue between the U.S. and Mexico. Of course, Canada, Mexico, and the United States are happy to be partners in a three-way North American free trade agreement. But all of the countries also have strong, deep, and important bilateral relationships. And in those bilateral relationships, inevitably issues emerge. Just as Canada and the United States have a strong and very important ongoing conversation about how we manage our shared border. And that is a conversation which is one for those two sovereign countries to conduct. We very much respect the sovereignty of both Mexico and the United States and the fact that their management of their shared border is a bilateral issue. And we are also, let me emphasize, in very close contact with both our Mexican and American counterparts. Canada has the relationship with Mexico, the relationship with the United States. Both of these are very important to Canada. And we have very good relations with both countries, and the communication is constant. I had a conversation on Friday evening with my Mexican counterpart, Graciela Marquez. And of course, we had Vice President Pence visiting Canada on Thursday. When it comes to the ratification of the new NAFTA, Canada's position has been for a long time that for us, the obstacle to moving ahead with NAFTA ratification was the existence of the 232 national security tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum. As people know, those tariffs have been lifted. In fact, it's been 2 weeks since they have not been in place between Canada and the U.S. And Canada, of course, lifted our retaliatory measures imposed on the U.S. Given that those tariffs have been lifted, our country's intention is to move forward with NAFTA ratification. We began that process last week in Parliament. We also understand that this is a trilateral agreement, that the new NAFTA can only enter into force upon ratification in all three countries. And so our intention, insofar as the different legislative processes allow, is to move forward in tandem with our NAFTA partners. So that is the Canadian approach, and if you'd like to comment.
I'd like to say that Chile believes in open markets. Our development in the last 30, 40 years has been based on open markets. We consider it a very important element for the development of our country and the economies of the world. We also believe in in clear and stable and transparent rules regarding trade relations. And we also believe that dialogue is the way to solve differences on commercial issues. And we followed with high interest the letter sent by President López Obrador to President Donald Trump. And we want to stress that dialogue is the way to solve all differences in this and other critical situations. Thank you.
Excellencies, okay. Excellencies, my name is Deepak Arora from the Tribune Online, New Delhi, India. Have you set up any deadline, or how optimistic you are to find a peaceful solution to Venezuelan crisis?
Well, as you heard in the statement, we decided to put in place an outreach program with the countries that are directly involved in supporting the legitimate regime of Maduro to be part of the solution, this peaceful solution, and to get a transition in Venezuela and to put in place the free and fair elections that everybody would like to have. Obviously, we would like to involve all the parties in Venezuela regarding this process. And it means that we are going to support Venezuelans in order to get the proper solution. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. My name is Abdul Hamid Sayam from the Arabic daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi. Sir, there is a history of interference by the United States in the internal affairs of Latin America. There are many regimes had been deposed, including Salvador Allende in Chile, in El Salvador, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Panama, and name it. What makes this different? I mean, because the Venezuelan policy now is in opposition to the US hegemony, they're trying to interfere in their internal affairs. They're trying to stage a coup in 2002 and recently. Why they don't respect the sovereignty of the state of Venezuela and do not interfere in the internal affairs of a sovereign state? Thank you.
Chile stays and believes on a political and peaceful solution for the crisis in Venezuela. And we are against any interference, military interference in the world. And in the case of Venezuela, we have said a very clear word about that, and that's why we also condemn the Cuban interference in Venezuela.
Je veux dire seulement deux choses en français parce que c'est important pour nous. Je veux seulement ajouter que pour nous, le Canada, nous apprécions beaucoup le niveau de collaboration dans notre région, notre hémisphère. Pour nous, le travail que nous faisons dans le groupe de Lima, c'est une priorité pour la politique étrangère du Canada. Et j'apprécie beaucoup le travail que nous faisons avec nos très proches partenaires, avec qui nous avons des accords de commerce international, le Chili et le Pérou. Et je veux souligner que nous, comme les pays dans notre région, dans notre hémisphère, nous avons pris l'initiative de travailler ensemble pour aider, pour appuyer les gens du Venezuela, pour les appuyer dans le travail que les gens du Venezuela font maintenant pour la démocratie, pour les droits humains dans son pays. Merci beaucoup.